Hello everyone, I'm Starmute. Today I'd like to talk about some experiences I've had with an art form that most people have probably never heard of. Plasma artwork is a pretty beautiful thing. Personally, I like it because of the vibrant colors, the interactivity, and of course the, high voltage. That's always fun. It works by giving some electricity nowhere to go except for through a glass vessel full of some weird gases, and as that electricity is traveling, it produces streams of bright colors. In any case, odds are you've probably seen plasma art before. You might recognize this Illumistorm globe, which was made by Radio Shack in the 1980s. Nowadays, plasma globes are mostly manufactured by one of any number of Chinese companies, and they tend to really enjoy screeching at you because of low-quality power supplies. As far as this art form goes, that's probably the most that many people have ever seen. There are a few other companies that made plasma art, though, and me being the wacky collector that I am, I've tried to get my hands on some of these over the years. Radio Shack manufactured these weird lightning domes in the 1990s with several different, mostly krypton-based mixtures. A company called Lumisource made these weird twisty plasma things with the help of Mundy Hebburn in the 1990s and early 2000s. Then HPI followed up with some similar pieces which I personally think are a little bit higher quality. These days, the best place to get high-quality plasma artwork is probably Aurora Plasma Design in Canada. They make some very beautiful 15-inch globes, but unfortunately the driver they use requires a pretty loud fan to keep things cool, and they're quite expensive. Most globes are around $600. There's also a group in Russia called Tesla Coil Pro, which makes plasma art using gases stolen from abandoned laboratories, which might be the most Russian thing I've ever heard of. I think the tube I have from them is one of my best pieces, actually. And if you're a lunatic like me, you might end up just making them yourself. Back in 2019, I actually spent a heck of a lot of time making plasma artwork. Of course, there was one more thing that I just had to have. Bill Parker, the guy who invented plasma artwork, made several series of gorgeous 12-inch globes back in the 1980s. Most of them were sold to either museums or very wealthy collectors, and these days they're incredibly rare. I spent about 4 years trying to find one, actually. One of my favorite ones was called Sleepless Nights, so when I saw that very one up for sale a few weeks ago, oh, you bet it was going to be mine. I convinced the seller to ship it to me, paid for it, and a few days later it arrived. This footage here is actually the first time I turned it on. You can see me messing around with all the sliders and trying to figure out how it works. I was pretty stunned by the color in this thing. It's almost as blue as some of the lasers that I have, which is pretty intense. Pretty quickly I figured out how to work the globe properly. The first slider controls the power, the second controls the pulsing, and the third controls the frequency. Of course, it was not meant to be, and later that night the power transformer died, which destroyed the driver beyond repair. So given the very explicit warning to never open the base, I was left with a very expensive brick full of rare gases. Not a great situation. I was told by another collector that sending it to Parker himself for repairs would mean waiting over a year to get it back, and I was not going to deal with that. But for the time being, I just wanted to see that blue again, and I didn't really want to open up the globe and make Parker hate me, so I ripped the driver out of a Smirnoff promotional plasma display that I had, and just stuck it onto the globe with a little piece of foil tape. This wasn't bad, but it definitely felt like a parody of the original art piece, and I didn't feel right using it. I let the globe sit for about a week, sometimes turning it on and, feeling bad, before I just couldn't stand it anymore and ripped the darn thing open, in full violation of that scary label. With the globe base opened up, I once again turned to the Smirnoff driver to power the globe. This one is pretty odd, but also unique for a variety of reasons. Now, most commercial globes like this Aurora globe run somewhere around the 40 kilohertz range. Parker's globes ran somewhere between the 20 to 40 kilohertz range. As you can see here, this Smirnoff driver runs at around 84 kHz. This is actually one of the highest I've ever seen in a power supply for plasma. Here's the Aurora globe from before running on the 84 kHz driver. I tend to like higher frequencies more like this because they encourage filamentation and very clear effects. So I connected the Smirnoff driver up to the Parker globe and the result was not bad. There still wasn't any activity when you weren't touching the globe, but that wasn't too big a deal. The bigger problem was actually a much more subtle one. I noticed a tiny little shake in the plasma rope. This usually means that there's something either wrong with your gas mixture or the driver, and I knew the mixture was fine here. I think this driver just didn't like this particular globe for whatever reason. Right here you're seeing some slow motion footage of the globe, and you can clearly see the little shake. I decided to keep the Parker globe next to my own globe, which actually seemed to stabilize the shaking effect a little bit. It also just looked pretty nice there anyway. But I still wasn't satisfied. I wanted the globe to be active when it wasn't being touched, and nothing was going to stop me. And I also had a big box of flyback transformers that I thought I might be able to make use of for that. I also had a bunch of ZVS drivers lying around. ZVS stands for Zero Voltage Switching, and it's basically a weird flyback driver. You have to wind 2 loops of wire as a flyback primary, and most drivers just use 1. Anyway, I decided to try out a bunch of different flybacks and see which ones would work best. Some of them were pretty clearly bad choices and ended up producing a ton of ozone. I also tested this on a bootleg Sleepless Nights that I made in 2019. I found a setup that worked consistently and I was ready to try it out. I connected everything up, I wrapped some foil tape around the base of the globe, and hooked it up to the flyback ground. I thought this would encourage the plasma to arc down to the bottom, and it did that oh so well. I finally had the effect that I had wanted for years. The globe worked wonderfully like this for a few days. I'm glad I captured all this footage because one day while I was sitting across the room, I saw a little point on the electrode get yellow hot. I rushed to turn off the power supply, but it was already too late. The glass cracked as it cooled down and the gases leaked out. Unfortunately, at this point, the only thing I could really do was just sit there and watch as the globe fizzled out. It'll never really be completely clear why the globe failed in this way. I've heard of it happening before though. Parker's old globes just weren't good at spreading the current around the electrode. These days we do that using very coarse steel wool. In the end, although this was a bit sad, I got to enjoy something that not many people do, and I did the best I could to save it. Anyway, this was my little story that I just wanted to tell. If you have a Parker globe, or if you've ever seen one, I'd love to hear about it. Be sure to leave a comment if you thought this video was interesting, and as usual, thank you for watching.